All right. Little fuck up there on my end. Episode 47 of Exit Liquidity. We got Anders from marginfi. How's it going, man?
Hey, just tweeting the link. I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Pretty good.
Quite well.
The name of the show is Exit Liquidity. It's got some deep history in it. Can you give us a bit of an intro about yourself and throw in a story of where you might have been someone else's Exit Liquidity?
Yeah, I think I was exit liquidity on Jito this week after this dropped out. No, so let's see. I did like kind of some normal finance stuff before. Got interested in crypto back in high school, like right before the 2017 cycle. So kind of like followed it since then, and then I joined marginfi right after the seed round closed in like late 21. So I've been with the team. Actually, tomorrow will be 2 years. I didn't realize that. So I've been with the team like 2 years now. Was like one of the first hires there, and I can talk a little bit more about like what we're building if you want. But let's see. I didn't actually bid Jito. I just held my airdrop this whole time. But I definitely got dumped on recently. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I bought one of those like exiled D gods. You guys see that? Those like pumped.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Before or after he announced the bridge?
I think right after. I think that's why it didn't go well. Also, there's like 30% royalties on those, and I just like wasn't paying attention, and it was like completely optional. So I don't know. I just like burned a ton of money on that for zero reason. So
30%.
That was my recent. Yeah, it's crazy because they had the like the bridge tax to basically incentivize you not to trade them on Solana. I think that's what it was, but so I don't know. Yeah, it wasn't like a big size trade, but it was very, very poorly done.
I mean, Jito's still going to $10 as far as I'm concerned.
That's right.
Well, I think you're It'll take some time, take a little bit longer than initially thought, but the what's that thing that Crypto Capo says? The something scenario still in play, target's still in play, something like that.
Yeah, bullish scenario is not
bullish scenario
invalidated.
Still in play.
Invalidated, yeah.
Not in. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
that's how I'm feeling.
Yeah, I guess it would be good to like get a little bit about like what margin is, why you chose to start there. Just to like set the scene a little bit first off.
Yeah, so we have two main companies now. So we have Margin Inc., which is like kind of almost product studio now, and then we have Margin Research, which is a like HFT prop fund. So I'll talk mostly about like marginfi side, but like on the Margin Inc. side, we are the core contributors to marginfi, which is the largest DeFi app on Solana, and like the most liquid borrow lend on Solana. We're rolling out a few new products in the next few months, so we'll be doing like a over collateralized stablecoin that I could talk a little bit more about. A few other things we haven't talked publicly about much yet. So that's like marginfi side. Kind of way I got interested in that was like following DeFi all of last cycle, and I think like Ethereum did a good job, kind of like bringing some of these primitives to light and making them a reality. But like once you've used Solana, it's like really annoying going back anywhere else. And I think that more and more people are realizing just like how much more enjoyable it is to use. And that's just like the UX side. Like from a performance perspective, there's a lot of benefits to something like Solana. And so, yeah, I guess like Solana was just super early when I got interested in it. And so it was like a great opportunity to build out some of these early primitives on a chain that seems really promising.
Were you on the ETH side of things for like a significant period of time, or did you catch Solana pretty early and make the switch from there?
Yeah, definitely. Like I like both ecosystems. Like I still do stuff on ETH. I've done stuff on ETH for a while now. But yeah, got interested in Solana like spring, summer 21, and have like mostly stuck around since then.
Interesting. Did your faith ever waver? Like after all the SBF stuff and like when like I think now the chain going down is a meme, but there was a time when it was like a genuine concern. Was there ever a time where you were worried about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, the outages I think never concern me as much as some other people, because there's always like pretty clear reasoning for them to happen. Um, what concerns me more, even like to this day, is the like supply concentration on Solana. So if you look at like ETH total TVL divided by like the FDV or the market cap of ETH, it's a pretty healthy rate. It's like 10% or something. But then if you look at that for Solana, it's closer to I think it's like 2% last time I looked. And then if you look at like Sol denominated TVL on Solana, it's been like pretty choppy this whole year. Like the last month, everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, like Solana DeFi, I need to farm all this," and so like all the numbers are going up, but that's really just like the dollar value going up. But if you look at like how much Solana is actually being used, it's like still quite a bit lower than last year, and so I think that remains like my big concern is that like too much of the supply is in people's hands who just want to like stake it and not do much with the chain. But as far as like the outages, I think like most of that's been mitigated at this point, and like all of the historical ones, there was clear reason for it.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. I think like I definitely like one of Cito's bigger concerns and I guess most people's with Solana valid concerns at least is on the liquidity side. And like you'd think that like everything that's been going on the past month, at least in Sol terms, would eventually like transition into an uptick there. It could still, I think, and like especially with all the stuff that's still yet to come. That's like the one thing that's like worth monitoring, I think. Just to
Yeah,
see like how all this transitions.
the liquidity is still really bad. I was tweeting a ton about this yesterday, but the guy that like depegged MSOL, it was like a $8
It's
million
like a 7 million
sell.
sell, something
Yeah,
right?
like literally all you
Crazy.
need to depeg the largest one on Solana is like a couple million, which is really, really bad. And there's some like nuance there. So like I don't know if you guys know Synctum on Solana, but basically like uh, MSOL is like the only LST that could happen to. Um, so the liquidity is like better for all the other ones than it seems, but it's still just like very, very small. It's not great.
I also on that like same I saw a tweet explaining that, and on the same one, I saw that a 7 million sell into USDC of just native Sol would drive the price down to like 40 on
Yeah,
Jupiter specifically.
I I saw that too. I didn't fact check that.
I didn't
Um,
either, but it was hilarious to me. First thing
let's
I
look
thought was
right
like, all right,
now.
I know what I'm doing if I ever come up with $7 million.
I mean, it's let's see, it's 3
But I
million.
guess I don't know if Jupiter misses any like crucial sources for that.
Jupiter's really comprehensive, especially on like a major pair like that. Yeah, it's not good. I haven't checked this data recently, but I remember over the summer it had been there hadn't been a like 7-figure swap, like one transaction over 7 figures since like FTX blew up. It was like months and months and months. Um, so yeah, the liquidity remains like very concerning, and it's interesting because like the volume is really good right now. I think like a few days ago it was like 70% of ETH on chain activity, which is pretty crazy
Yeah.
considering like the TVL
Yeah.
difference. But there's just like not the depth for size right now. There's like a lot of people buying like these just very low effort tokens, having fun with that. But we need like much more liquid markets to get bigger players in.
Yeah. The spikes are very encouraging, I will say. Like when you see that like Solana's doing or like Jupiter's doing 70% of like Uniswap volume on like a given day, or like Mad Lads or Tensorians is like the most traded collection in the past 24 hours and like all of crypto. That stuff is super bullish, I think. But like it's the moments outside of that, which is like what I would like to see tick up. Um, I feel like we've seen a lot of like I mean, as this happens like anytime there's a somewhat new narrative, you see the same thread repeated where it's like the same 6 projects mentioned, It's like, oh, like it's not too late for Solana airdrops. Farm these like 6 gems, and it's always like margin, Camino, Drift, Tensor, you know, like the usual suspects. Airdrop farming aside, what are some projects in the ecosystem that you find to be like particularly exciting?
Yeah, I like I like Jito, obviously. And then I like, what have I seen recently? I'll talk about Sanctum because I think that doesn't get like as
I don't
much
know that
attention
one.
as it deserves. Yeah, so basically, all of the liquid staking tokens on Solana, they're all built on the same like SPL token standard, and since they're standardized, like the way they're built is they're all stake accounts technically, so they're all like staking to a validator. So what Sanctum is it's basically this like huge pool of Solana, and what you can do is you can swap any stake account into Sol instantly. And so normally you'd have to like wait 3 days to unstake, but with this, it basically is like a future almost, where it gives you liquidity on that. And so what that does is that means if you can like swap any LST to Sol, then you can tap into all the liquidity that like Sol USDC has. And so it makes these LSTs way more liquid, and it's also like the liquidity is fungible in a way. So any LST that's built on that token standard can tap into that. And so that was like, there's like 2 LSTs that I think this is like interesting for. So if you look at like MSOL yesterday, like they didn't have Sanctum liquidity, so that like hurt the depth quite a bit. And then if you look at like our LST product, initially we didn't see like $1 of liquidity for it. It was like just using the Sanctum liquidity. And so like even with that, like we were able to like use it as collateral on marginfi and stuff. And now it's like gotten to the point where we have like Meteora and Camino pools and all that. But I think Sanctum's like really interesting. I think it's definitely like a only possible on Solana use case, because you have like you're like the LSTs are almost enshrined at this point, that like program on Solana. So I think that's like pretty cool in the DeFi side. What else have I liked recently? I think I want to play with Parcel a little more. Been hearing more and more about Parcel. Like at face value, it's like the most ridiculous product, right? Like perps on real estate on chain. Like that's it's pretty. Like you're not building outside of a blockchain, I don't think.
Yeah.
So that's like pretty cool. I want to play around with that some more. And then what else have I been using? Those are like the 2 I've been intrigued by. The like a lot of the other ones are like things you've seen before, right? Like a bar lend or a perp dex or some like liquidity manager. So I guess those 2 interest me because they're like pretty unique use cases and things I haven't seen elsewhere.
Yeah. Parcel's interesting. I haven't read up on it too much, but from what I've been told, like it sounds like a not like great. Well, it sounds like the infrastructure is like not great, you know? Like as far as I know, it's just a regular like VMM with the same thing that's blown up in like 3 different scenarios already on ETH and L2s. So I don't know, but
the mechanism
trade Miami, I guess.
A little sketchy. But yeah, you can like go long Miami, and that's
I guess it's fun. It's the whole people will gamble on anything thesis, which is like a compelling one. I mean, let's be honest, people will gamble on anything, and it's like funny to talk about too, like going short Miami, going short, whatever. There's a lot of meme potential there, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be the guy like managing risk for that product, but I will definitely like, try it out and be amused by it.
For Jito, I have a good idea of what it is, and I've seen the Lido plus Flashbots comparison. Can you give us like, for someone who hasn't looked into it deep enough yet, can you give us not necessarily the bull case, but like what it is, what you can do that's so different about it? What gave you the conviction to hold like fat airdrop bags to what is supposed to be $10?
Yeah, so There's like three core Judo products. So there's the kind of like the main thing that everything's built around is the like MEV auction system. So the way Solana MEV works right now is you don't have a mempool at all. So it's basically like the transactions are all sequenced just according to what time they were submitted. It's not like all the transactions within a 10-second period are then like ordered arbitrarily based on what like a block builder wants. And so what happens with that is as soon as there's like some sort of arbitrage opportunity on chain, there's just like tons and tons of transactions spammed to try to like get it before other people. And so the problem with that is it leads to a ton of network congestion. It's something like 98 or 99% of transactions on Solana are just like arbitrage bots. And so what that does is that makes it like way harder for normal people to like land just like some sort of simple transaction. And I think it'll also lead to like higher fees in general. So what the Jito auction does is very similar to Flashbots. Basically, now searchers can like bid on these like particular transactions that they're all trying to land, and the thought is that will reduce congestion and it'll also like distribute MEV from searchers back to stakers. So kind of like a redistribution of the MEV there. So that's like the core thing. That's like that everything else will be built around is that MEV engine. And then what they did after that was kind of their go to market was like the way this works is it only works if the validator that's like leading that slot is running Jito like as the validator client. And so if only like 1% of the network's running it, you can't like reduce all of this spam on the network. And so what they did was they made a LST that only stakes to validators running Jito. And the thought there is like, if you're holding Jito Sol, then you're gonna like receive all of these MEV tips from searchers. And so they like launched the LST. I think it's like very close with Marinate. Marinate has this like native product. So they're like, if you go on DeFi Llama, they have like way more TVL. But if you look at just the stake pools, they're like neck and neck right now. At one point, Jito was bigger, but I'm not sure right now. So they have this this LST, and then the last part is the StakeNet product, which I don't think most people are familiar yet. And I think it's actually like pretty interesting from a governance perspective. But basically, right now, like that stake pool program I mentioned is like fully on chain, but the delegation strategy is not on chain. So basically, you have like something off chain that's like saying stake to these validators or like stake to validators with like, you know, X amount of stake in X country, something like that. But what StakeNet does is it lets that be fully decentralized and on chain. And now with like the Jito token, you could vote on where stake goes. So I think like from a governance perspective, this will be pretty interesting because you can like, if Jito has like the most stake of any liquid staking pool, and you can like vote on where that stake goes, there's like pretty clear value in that. Because I mean, like for one, there's just like the commission from staking, and then two, from like landing a transaction perspective, having more stake is like much better. So yeah, that's like the three big products with Jito right now. And then I think as far as like trading goes, I think it's just like there's simply not enough coins on the market is my entire thesis there. So we'll see if that plays out. But there's like low float. There's no meaningful supply changes for another year. And if you look at like just the market cap basis, it's still quite cheap, even if the FDV is really high. So not financial advice, but that's why I like haven't sold any of my airdrop, and I'm going to sit on these for a while.
Nice. That was a really good explanation. I can't tell if we asked this, but what is your role at marginfi?
I work on the growth team there, so do like marketing, community, product, and then more like BD sales type stuff.
Nice. What
Basically,
was the
anything that's not writing code?
what was like the moment that like where you switched to Solana? Do you remember like the kind of like first few things you did on there?
Yeah,
Do you have
I
a
remember.
iLab?
I used to
Way
have a bunch
before
of
that.
iPads. Yeah. I remember buying Solana over that summer, and then I didn't get like really into it until the like Degen Ape mint. So I minted those, and those
Cool.
did really well. And then it was crazy, man. Like I remember I was in college at the time, and like in between classes, I was just like minting NFTs, and like anything you minted for this like 2 week period, like you could immediately just sell it for like 5, 10x more, and it was just like two of them a day nonstop. So that was when like Solana got really crazy, and that was quite a bit of fun. Um, but I've been looking like a little bit before then. But yeah, that was when it got like more serious, I guess.
What kind of stuff do you like only do on ETH or only do on Solana? You said you mentioned you do some things on ETH. What are like the
Yeah,
main things you're doing over there?
so I don't know. I got pulled into the like shitcoin vortex of the summer on ETH.
Hmm.
So I that was kind of fun. I don't know. Probably not a great idea. But so there's like historically much better like low cap stuff like that on ETH. And then now I'm mostly um, just trying out some of these new L2 things. So like I sent some money to Blast. I have like a little friend tech portfolio. I want to get into Eigenlayer when those caps go up. I tried out
They
ZK
just went
Sync.
up, I
Honestly,
think.
ZK Sync. I think it's the 18th, right? I thought it was the 18th.
Maybe they announced it. I don't know if they
Yeah,
did it. Might be
I think I
right.
saw that announcement. Um, yeah, I used ZK Sync, and honestly, it like felt pretty fast. I was expecting to be like a full hater of ZK Sync, but like my brief usage of it, it really wasn't that bad. So I don't know.
That's
Um,
crazy.
what
I'm a
else?
pretty big ZK Sync hater. I'm not gonna lie.
Really,
Really?
what's your beef
Yeah.
with them?
It's not well, okay. It's not the actual like interacting with the actual chain is better than something like Starknet, I think. Um I've tried and like Linea. I've tried literally like every L2 at this point. Um my problem with ZK Sync is the ecosystem for how long it's been around. Like I don't consider it to be like a new L2 anymore. It's been around since like March, I think. Which like yeah, that's not that long, but like I think I would rather go and use something like Scroll because they have the same like top decks that ZK Sync does, Sync Swap, and they have ambient, and like I would have no problem using ambient. I mean I farm it obviously, but I also just I like the interface. ZK Sync, they've just I don't know. I feel like I just had my hopes too high. Like I did this whole thing. This was like maybe like a month or two ago. They like I found this like GitHub repo where they were talking about this like block timestamp issue that ZK Sync had for a while that they were fixing. It was like a 6 to 8 week development process or something like that. And after that was fixed, um, the block times would be synced with mainnet and with other L2s again. So other EVM projects could like much more easier deploy onto ZK Sync. Whereas before it was like you had to kind of start from scratch. So I found that and I was like, holy shit, guys, like we can finally have like Uniswap and like Chainlink and Curve and all this like important infrastructure on ZK Sync. And mind you, prior to this, I was also like convinced that ZK Sync was gonna like have some sort of like a killer app, just because it was like the first big L2 after Arbitrum and Optimism. Arbitrum obviously had GMX. Optimism had like Synthetics and Velodrome. So I was convinced ZK Sync was going to also, but they never did. And then I found this thing. I made like a whole thread about it that like kind of blew up. And then the date came and went like a month ago, and there's still nothing on there. And it's like it's pretty expensive sometimes too, like $2-3 for swaps. I think I just had bad expectations for it, so like it kind of holds like a poor place in my heart. On the bright side, I'm gonna be getting one hell of an airdrop from them because I've been using it literally since day one on like 6 or 7 different wallets, just like trying different things. But I don't know. I think it was more so my fault for getting my hopes up more than anything. because none of that happened with the other L2s.
Yeah, what was the launch date again? How long has it been?
March something. I don't know. Let me check DeFi Llama.
Yeah, that is a while. Did not
Yeah,
have
I mean
one.
it's not as long as like Arbitrum or Optimism, obviously.
Yeah.
But what I compare it to is like the other new gen of L2s, which is like Linea, Scroll, um, I guess really just those two
Mantle,
mainly.
maybe.
Starknet kind of, Mantle, yeah. Starknet kind of, but Starknet has, I also dislike Starknet, but I wasn't as close to them because for like a good year after their launch, transactions took like an hour each. It was a
Oh
joke of a
wow.
chain, and they were running like farming campaigns on there through like via Argent or something like that. And just because I was on there so early, I'd like, wanted to take advantage of that. So every week I would log on, I would do Argent's like stupid little task of like swap $20 or whatever. I would submit the transaction, and then I would go and do something else while I waited for it to be submitted. I would come back like a half hour later and it wouldn't be done yet because everyone would log on and there was like no throughput whatsoever. So Starknet's just always been a joke to me. I never gave them a chance to begin with.
Did you see?
But
Did you see Earl's tweet about how they got like locked out of their wallet, basically, or they like stopped
no.
servicing their account? I saw someone like had a Starknet wallet, and then they just said like, your wallet's done. Basically, it was very bizarre. I didn't look into it a ton, but
Argent had an issue specifically a while back, or I think it's still an issue now if you haven't updated your wallet in a while, but you have to like update every so often, or you did in the past, and there's like a bug, or like not even a bug. I think it was just like I think this was just the way it worked. Like you update and it clears like your funds, and you can't like I don't know what happens to them because it happened to me. I only had like $50 on that wallet, but it happened to me once, and like I literally like I got the seed phrase back and everything, and I went through all 100 wallets that were attached to that seed phrase, and I couldn't find my money. So
wow.
I don't. Starknet's just I don't know. They're something else.
It just
They're one of the more disappointing
this
ones.
was a different issue. This was a different
okay.
issue than the one I had.
Yeah, what
But
was
still,
this?
it's a different one. No, I have no idea. I know you have to. I know you do have to update accounts every so often, but I guess after a while, sometimes you just get locked out too. Easy. Anders,
I
what
remember
do you?
seeing those guys in Colombia. They always seem sketch to me since then. They never like put out
Starknet?
anything solid. Yeah. They had like a talk
It's
with Argent.
It's an interesting ecosystem. It's very. I worked in VC for a while, and it's of getting into like at least back then, getting into anything Starknet related was impossible unless you were like in their ecosystem, because they raised so much money that they would just fund every project themselves, and like the few cap tables they did have that were public were like super competitive. But like besides that, like Starknet was just siloed from everything else. Like they had very little BD effort in other ecosystems. Like you couldn't really invest in them unless you were like really in there. It was I don't really know what the plan was there with that, but yeah, interesting. I want to switch over to like marginfi a little bit here. Can you give us like a rough overview of like the products you guys have specifically? I'm interested in hearing about the LSD and the stable coin you guys are looking to launch.
Yeah, so right now we have like two core products, I'd say. So we have like marginfi, sometimes called margin lend, which is the borrow lend. So that's just like a very high quality borrow lend. Like it's nothing fancy really. It's just like it does what you'd expect like an Aave or Compound to do, but it just does it very well. And we've done a ton of like research on the risk side with this. So we have like these deposit and borrow caps that are driven like entirely just by this like that market liquidity we were talking about earlier. So like if you look at our app right now, like there's only like a couple assets you can actually deposit at this point, just because everything else is like maxed out. And we're like hoping we can raise caps more, but it's just like a function of what the liquidity is like in the ecosystem. So that's like the borrow lend side. Like I was saying earlier, it's largest app on Solana now, or like highest TVL app on Solana. And then we also have an LST, which is called LST. And what our idea there was like in a post sanctum world where LST liquidity is all fungible. There's much less of a liquidity moat with an LST. So like Lido has a monopoly on ETH because they had all the liquidity early on, and so like no new borrow lend or perp dex is going to list something outside of ST ETH unless it has a lot of liquidity, just because there's like risk associated with that. But on Solana, since like there's this 15-20 million dollar sanctum pool everyone can tap into, all of a sudden like the liquidity is in a moat, which makes all these fungible. And so then I think we start seeing like more specialized LSTs. And so what we're doing with ours is it's just like entirely performance oriented. So it only sticks to 2 validators that we operate. There's no commission on the validator. There's no commission on the stake pool. And then the validators themselves are like some of the highest yielding on Solana. So if you want to like hold Solana in a liquid staking token, it's like the highest yield option for that available. But it goes back to this thesis that like LSTs will become commoditized, and like basically people will use LSTs for like there'll be like niche LSTs for different things you want to do. So there's one called like DAO on Solana, which is it only stakes to like the Monkey DAO and the Bonk and the Mad Lad validator. It's like a community run LST. Something like Jito only stakes to things that run the Jito client, obviously. So that's our LST product. And then the next product will kind of use both of those. So we're building this over collateralized yield bearing stablecoin. And so what it will do is you'll be able to mint it against any LST deposit in marginfi, and not just like our LST, but like all the different types of LSTs. And it'll be yield bearing. So basically, the like yield from the staking rewards will get redirected to holders of the stablecoin. So kind of similar to like a Libra on ETH, but that should be. I'm very excited for that. We're targeting like end of January for that, and it'll definitely be like the most complicated product we've built, I think. But if it works the way we're expecting it to, I think it'll be really, really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Ollie had to go piss. The question on my mind, sitting on the left curve, who named LST?
I think
Is that you?
I think it was me. I'm trying to remember. It was funny when we did this and the stablecoin name. We were just like spitballing.
Have you released the stablecoin name yet?
Yeah, it's called YBX.
YBX.
Yeah, we'll let people ponder that. But yeah, it's LST and YBX.
How have you guys been thinking about like the risk stuff there with like a yield bearing stablecoin? So I feel like Libra is all right, but there have been some competitors that have tried to tweak the things that they've done, and tweak the kind of risk parameters, and like basically they've kind of like shit themselves a bit. There's been some like big issues there. How have you guys been thinking about the risk there and deploying that?
Yeah, is it like Prisma, or who have you seen that you think's doing better?
Doing the best? No, I'd say Libra is doing the best, but I think some of their competitors kind of sucked.
Raft had an exploit recently, right?
Yeah, with Raft.
I think not maybe 2 months ago, something like that.
I see. Yeah, so You're curious about like the risk management side of it, or how we're thinking about like competitors trying to build it?
The risk management side, like seeing the failures of like other other protocols.
Yeah. So sorry, dogs going crazy. It'll leverage all of our like existing risk infra we built for the borrow lend. Because I think at the end, I mean, like most of this is just like a liquidity question. And so we have like really good insight into on-chain liquidity. And when you have that, you can like more comfortably set parameters and different constraints around it. So I think like from a risk perspective, it's obviously like a different problem set because you need to maintain the peg. But as far as like maintaining collateralization and stuff goes, I think it's like a very similar problem space to what we did with the borrow lens. So I think we're gonna like be able to leverage a lot of our existing infra there.
Anders, to the best of your ability, can you give us the rundown of the Sol End margin beef, like the history there, and kind of like what the two sides are so mad about?
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember how it. Someone asked me this last night. I think it was Jerry at Ellipsis. It was like, what was like the first strike in the beef?
Who threw the first stone? Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I don't remember. I've been like kind of sidelined on this whole scuffle, but basically, like we have some, like we built this bar of land because we saw like how like the whole FTX collapse went down, right? Like there was a bunch of Oracle issues, and then there was like people borrowed way more than they should have been able to, um, and so it felt like there's like a lot of like pretty low hanging optimizations to be made, and so we're like, all right, we're just gonna build like a better, safer borrow lend, and so like most of the disagreements we've had have come like from this risk discussion. So like yesterday, um, like one of their engineers tweeted like, "Oh, we just like peg LST prices to the Sol price plus whatever like premium they've accumulated," and then that's like their methodology because the thought is like the LST is always solvent. It might just take some time, and so you can like price it at that uh, because you can like eventually get those funds back. And then our argument is that like it's not it's solvent, but it's not liquid, and the point of a borrow lend is to like maintain the liquidity of it, and you're like incurring bad debt if you're not, even if it's like transient, and then that's all like without even looking at a scenario where maybe the LST isn't solvent, right? Like if the stake pool contract got exploited, like your LST isn't solvent anymore. And so like how do you price that for lenders that are lending against those assets? So that was like the beef yesterday. I think like I kind of see where they're coming from, but I think it's like pretty akin to like if you hard code USDC as one in your like risk engine, like USDC is backed, but obviously it's like depegged before. Um, so our like all of our risk management and like all of our pricing methodology is it's like on some zero hedge perma bear mindset because we basically like assume anything can go to zero at any point in time, and so all of the constraints are like built around that like worst case scenario mindset. So that's why we like price things how we do. That was like the Twitter beef yesterday. um Honestly, like I don't like mind the Solent guys, but they do seem like I don't know. Like I don't think we're really like provoking fights much anymore. But they'll get like very, very, very heated in the replies out of nowhere, even if we're just like trying to discuss like a particular like methodology or feature. So yeah,
It
that's
was
the beef.
it was funny to watch last night because every reply between like in the beef was happening within like 2 minutes of each other. So you knew the other guy was on the other side, just like waiting to see what
Just
the next guy
furiously
would say.
typing.
Yeah.
It's like it was super funny to see. I mean, yeah, the vibe of the Solon guy just yeah, I don't understand like the technicalities too much, but they were trying to say like you guys like stole some like code base or something, and I'm like,
Oh, that was another one too. They said like we stole this like brick the program feature, which is like basically what it does is it's just like a kill switch, right? Like if something goes wrong, you just like effectively pause everything. So out of nowhere, like unprovoked, we didn't like tweet at them or anything. Rooter just like tweets like it's cool to see them like steal this feature, basically, which we like we didn't fork their repo as far as I know. We forked something else. So then I like quote tweeted him and basically said like your entire protocol is a fork of something else, which it is. It's like an SPL lending program that all they've done is added like switchboard support to, and now they're like starting to build out the risk features. But yeah, that was like something unprovoked that I don't know. It's just like we're not trying to argue about that stuff. We're trying to like build better products. But they seem like pretty set on like some of the name calling and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I mean, I can't say that I know much more about Solon than I do about marginfi. I mean, I guess maybe now I can after this episode, but even before that, I kind of felt just like a bystander to the whole thing, and just the tone of the Solon guys has been very off putting. So
like
I don't know.
12-year-old.
Yeah, very very not a fan of that. But Solon's been around for a long time. I remember I was using them, or I was using them intermittently when I was first on Sol. I think I first got on Sol around the same time you did. Um, I was more on the DeFi side though, so I didn't have the 6x mints. I had the like 200 300% APY farms on Radium and Tulip, which you definitely had the better end of that deal, I would say, because I lost everything to impermanent loss within like a week or two. I didn't even get the 5x or the 6x. I'm curious, like, so marginfi, um, lending product, LST, yield bearing stable. What do you guys hope to be in like 2 years or like 5 years? What role are you trying to fill in the ecosystem?
Yeah, I think we have a pretty clear vision of being like the hub for spot assets on Solana. So if you're trying to like lend, if you're trying to get liquidity on an asset, or if you're trying to like swap into another asset, we want like marginfi to be this like hub for all of that spot activity. So there's like the borrow lend side, there's the CDP, and then lastly we're looking at building a like integrated stable swap as well, which would allow for like stable coin transactions with the borrow lend liquidity. So yeah, the vision's basically like margin will become like the place you go to do like anything with your spot assets on chain, and it'll support like all of these different actions that historically have been like broken into different protocols, but we think are much more efficient when they're shared between one.
And how do you see the LSD and the stablecoin fitting into that vision?
Yeah, so the LST, we want to give people like an option to maximize their yield without compromising on like the optionality with it, because you could go like stake to some validator that's doing really well right now, but then you can't like do anything else with that. And so we're looking to enable that like best in class native yield with the like flexibility of having it like tokenized. And then the stablecoin is just like a sustainable source of yield on stables. So I think like if you can get like sustainable yield on dollars, that's kind of like there's always going to be demand for that. I think a lot of people are trying it with like T bills right now, right? Like you use T bills to subsidize the yield. but there hasn't been as many people trying to do it with like the staking emissions. So it's just like a different source of yield, and it's a much more decentralized stablecoin than something that's like backed by T-bills, obviously. And so that's like the hole that's filling.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I I feel like I had, we have to ask this question throughout just given the legendary WAGMI one token. I have $30 on marginfi. Given everything that's happened, we have to ask if there's any information you can give us on, and it can just be like, if there's nothing specific, you can also just give us like vague directional stuff. That's kind of what Drift gave us, and it was actually really useful. Especially considering like how early they spoke about it with us. It was like, well before anyone was even looking at Solana in our audience. But it also gave us like good insight as to like how they're thinking about it, and I think that's definitely still relevant today, even though they haven't launched it. So anything that you can give us there?
Yeah, can't say too much.
Maybe it's points. Points is token, and in the name of, well, it's maybe token, and in the name of decentralization, maybe there's a similar like way governance was done with a token that you enjoy that could look like how margin might look like.
Oh,
The
so
ones that
just
go
like
up.
totally randomly, there's this governance model called future key, iterative future key, which is basically where you use prediction markets as a voting mechanism. So people like bet on outcomes rather than voting on outcomes. Um, just like totally randomly, just like thought of
That's
that.
interesting.
Wanted to mention that. Totally random idea that
Is
came
that
to mind.
practical? That seems like more of like a fun like social
Has
game
anyone done
rather
that
than
yet?
a.
So there's one guy who built it on Solana, but I'm not entirely sure what it's governing. Like it wasn't like a large protocol that like used this for their governance model. But there's some like fairly academic literature about it out there. Um, I haven't. I'm trying to remember what like the biggest example of it implemented is, but yeah, it's an interesting model. Um, yeah.
So back to margin.
Yeah, that was
If
just
you want
like
to
a
It's a
dodge the
little
little
question,
off
that's
random.
topic
fine.
there.
We'll let you if. Yeah, yeah.
No, I think
But
Yeah.
I think it clicked. I think it clicked.
I
But
don't think he. Okay.
I think it
That's
might have clicked.
interesting.
I
Maybe
might
it
look
did.
into
Maybe it did.
those academic resources and maybe get a better idea of what that looks like.
Yeah, it's
But
I
yeah,
I do. I'm curious to ask like I'm gonna be honest. I don't like points systems.
Mm.
I
point
realize
systems
I
that
realize
last
it's a
long.
means to an end. I realize it's a point system that are drawn out, like Blur or Swell or NFTFi, or dozens of others. Jito was a good timeline. Jito was
Hmm.
was what, like 2-3 months.
Yeah, Jito's quick.
But there's a lot of hate circulating around point system today, especially. People are, and obviously it's a means to an end to dodge regulation while also generating hype, and making some sort of an agreement with users. Um, are there any other models you guys considered for incentivizing activity without going the token route directly?
Yes, so we've done other incentive models. So the first, like when we launched, we did this like liquidity bootstrapping program where we basically took we we just wanted like Sol and USDC liquidity, and so for Sol we're like we'll give you 1% above the staking rate, and then for USDC we'll give you like 1% above the like lending market rate on USDC. But the thing is, it's like locked for 6 months. So that was like our initial bootstrapping model, and then after that, we had some like third parties bring like incentives onto our platform. So like very traditional liquidity mining. But yeah, I think like outside of token and points, I haven't really seen any other incentive models. Like you could do maybe something with an NFT, but an NFT is still just a token. I don't know, I guess for like I get how people are excited for the actual token, but if there were, I guess, if you dislike points, it's like, would you prefer to just have like to just go into the token creation blindly, like kind of like
Didn't
layer zero, right?
and Anatoly have like some commentary on that like recently for
Yeah, he was
Solana
like
airdrop stuff?
pitching ICOs basically.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like,
Like,
what if you?
was there
Yeah.
anything there that was like feasible in the way he was describing that? Because I feel like pitching ICOs is just not feasible.
Yeah, he was more talking about the like conversion process, I think. But I guess my like big question is like, would users really like? Would you? It seems like it's better for users to like go into like with Jito. It's better to know where you stand relatively than just be going into it blind, you know? So it feels like it's not like hurting users from that perspective.
Do you know who the number one marginfi points guy is?
Yeah, yeah.
Kyle.
We had it's not Kyle.
Salami.
Kyle's like not even top 5 actually. I'll be in
that's
these like
disrespectful.
research chats and people are like, "Oh, it's just Kyle on marginfi farming everyone." And he's like not even top 5. So yeah, I know the guy. I don't want to like dox him. I think he's like kind of low key about it, but yeah, he's like that guy is a massive
The
Solana
solo
DeFi
guy,
user.
not like a
No,
team.
actually, that guy's like he's up there as well, but no, he's not the top guy.
It's not you, is it?
Not who?
Not you.
Oh no, it's not me. I wish.
We're coming up on time here. I wanna circle back to when we asked you about some ecosystem projects you like in Solana. To ask you about mine or my current like favorite one. I've been showing this to like all my friends because it's still super early. So I'm curious to hear what you know about them and if you have an opinion on Phoenix.
The decks?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're
you-
great. They're like crazy sharp.
It's tough because they have like no online presence right now, so it's tough to get a gauge for anything besides like what their product is. And for how early it is, it kind of blows me away, honestly.
Yeah, so they've been building for about a year now, I want to say, and I think they're kind of taking the Serum approach, which was like just be the order book. You don't need to like you own the infrastructure, you don't own the app layer, right? So like I think like 90% of their flow comes from Jupyter. Like they honestly have like one of the best UIs I've seen like for order books. Like it's amazing, but like no one, like most people don't use it. But I think they're just like quoting much better, and so they're getting the fills without having to like have some like obnoxious Telegram chat with people spamming and stickers and all of that stuff. So yeah, I mean they're really really sharp, smart guys. The product's doing great numbers. I think it's like doing more than Lifinity and USDC or Lifinity and Orca on the Sol USDC.
It's pretty consistently top 3 on Jupyter.
Yeah.
Every time I check, at least in 24-hour volume, behind just like Radium and Orca.
Yeah, it's good. I would be surprised if they launched a token anytime soon, quite frankly. But
me too.
Yeah, it's a great product.
Yeah, I kind of try and I check out their Discord every now and then. I like drop some feedback in there and try and be a helpful community member. But just like no one's really around there, and like everyone who is around there is kind of just like just like looking for incentives or something. So like not really any reason for the team to check it out, but I'm excited for those guys.
Do you use their site? Do you like trade on their
Yeah,
app?
I'm
Nice.
sorry to admit it, but I did sell some of my Jito, and I did it
I
all.
mean, it was
I did it all through Phoenix. It was for
Oh,
it was
nice.
for a good cause, or I guess it was like my only experience using Phoenix because they listed Jito. It was interesting. They listed it right at launch, and the order book didn't hit any fills until maybe like 20 or 30 minutes in. But there was liquidity on there. And you just watch the spread get closer and closer and closer until it hit a fill. But maybe like 2 or 3 minutes post launch, it was something like a 10% spread, which is like not that bad, honestly, for what it is. And I don't are Jupiter limit orders routed through that? Like if I place a limit order on Jupiter, I don't think it goes and rests in
Oh,
Phoenix order book.
it'll if there's like an ask on Phoenix, or depending on if you're buying or selling, like they'll match those two orders. I think. I don't think it puts it on their book, but if there's like if you have like a limit order on Jupiter and someone's like willing to do that on the Phoenix book, it should route that.
Yeah, so it only takes taker liquidity as far as I know, or at least from Jupiter. I don't think you can make directly on it. You have to make either on the Phoenix app or if you're like a market maker properly. But given that fact, and given that like not many people know about it, I was surprised that they had decent depth after like half an hour, and that's where I was placing most of my limit orders once I did start selling. Last question. Cito is having some connection issues, so I will ask for him. If you were to recommend someone for us to have on next, let's say one from Solana and one from ETH, who would you recommend?
Yeah, you should have. Let me look at my Telegram recently.
You can go by project, not person, if you want.
Okay, by
Person's
project.
good too. I like having good personalities on.
You guys should have. You guys know R89?
Yeah.
So, like
Vaguely.
Yeah. I don't think he'll do your podcast because he's like very anon, but I would try to get him just because he would be pretty
We've
funny.
had some anon guys come on. No cam, but
yeah,
you might be able to
video
get him to do
avatar
that.
sometimes.
And then on ETH, I have to think about that a little more. No one's coming to mind. What projects have I used that were cool? I mean, if you could get Pac-Man on, I would definitely listen to that. It'd be like very.
We tried.
Yeah,
we tried.
Sure
we
that's
were a
all
lot
time.
smaller.
Yeah.
He answered like
I
one
guess
DM.
we were like 200
then,
followers when we tried.
Yeah, there's a chance.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's probably what I would say.
Check
Do you
out
think,
R89.
what's his
I'm not
name?
too familiar with him.
Fuck, I'm blanking on his name. I wanted this guy. Oh, Frank from D Guides.
Oh,
Do you think he'd be a good guest? I doubt he would come on this. Like, we're not nearly big enough, but
yeah, I don't know if he
guest?
would. He's definitely a good marketer. Like he knows what he's doing there. I'd be curious how he's. I mean, someone should get him on a podcast to get like his stance on like ETH versus Sol these days, because I think that would be pretty amusing. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like he's definitely a good marketer. I have like respect for that. But obviously they've been struggling recently.
Yeah.
That's all the more reason to have him on. Controversy.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. That's we just had you on because the Sol end tweets. Honestly, that was it.
Yeah, I don't want to highlight the beef too much, but I'm happy to share our perspective.
No, we had you on so
it was like last night too.
$10. Has the
I was
price
just
gone up as this episode?
It's
Do we
gone
have that
down.
kind of
Big
pull
red
yet?
candle. Every time I like mention judo, it goes down, and every time I go to bed, it goes up. I just need to shut up. No, I was just looking at Phoenix though. The judo book. I was thinking I could just like put my stack at $10 on the book to just put my
Forget
money
about
where
it.
my mouth is. Yeah, just like leave it there. I don't know if I want to lock it up there though, but I don't know. Might do that with some of it.
Cool.
Got some
All
sitting
right.
on there.
That's episode 47. Appreciate you coming on. Thanks everybody for tuning in.